Greetings, fellow travelers, and welcome to The Way of the Showman, where we view the world through the lens of showmanship. I am Captain Frodo, and I will be your host and your guide along the way. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. It makes such a big difference to me. And then it drops into your inbox whenever it is that a new episode comes out. Find us on Instagram on The Way of the Showman. And if you have any thoughts about today's episode or any other episode or anything I should cover or anything I should talk less about, then why not send me an email on thewayoftheshowman@gmail.com. I'm really excited today to bring you this episode with a very good friend of mine, an absolute circus nut such as myself, loving to talk. And as you will hear, I've been editing what's become the 2 episodes. We simply can't get off the phone with each other. So we ended the podcast 3 times and we basically recorded another hour after we were done. So that's always the case. I have to set off a lot of time when I'm going to talk to Menno, because that's who we're going to talk to here today. Menno Van Dyke, the artistic director. That's what he currently is, the artistic director of Circusstad Festival in Rotterdam. And I met him when we were performing together at Circus Nemo, where he was doing his incredible act, which we are going to dive into at some length in these 2 episodes. Because he's got an incredible act together with his wife, Emily. And the 2 of them are just great people with a kid, Jules, the same age as my daughter. So we have had spent a long time together on the road and had many great adventures and spent many, many nights talking in depth about acts and about all aspects of showmanship and performance. And Menno is an expert in what acts have ever existed, as we talk about from his extensive collection of circus on film. And we have, so much to talk about. He will be a frequent voice on the podcast as this goes on. And it's with great pleasure that I will introduce you to Menno Van Dyke.
I just came back from Stockholm. Did you know?
Yes, I saw a picture of you and Jay together.
I had a lot of fun there. It was really cool seeing Jay, meeting up with him and seeing his show.
Yeah. How would they do like that?
Oh, great. Yeah, it was a very fun show and really well put together. And it's this festival, Circus Mania Festival, that puts up these performances all around town. And then there's the circus.
I was just watching it. It's a little bit earlier version than
what I saw.
Than when you saw. This is in Swedish. He didn't have the English one online, and then he sent it to me yesterday. So I actually, when I woke up this morning, I watched it. So I'm like 2/3 through watching it today in Swedish. But
yeah, and he said because the audience was mainly professionals, because during this Circus Mania they host Circus Expo, which is like a platform for Nordic circus. So it's like a convention actually. So we were many people from all over Europe, mostly Scandinavian countries, but also many other places in Europe and also abroad. There were people from Montreal, Canada, and everything. And so they take you into this discussion panels and pitches. There was all these companies and artists pitching their new shows, some of them also showing like a preview. And then in the evenings, we would go to performances that were part of the Circus Mania Festival. And on Saturday, we had a whole day of performances. So I saw like 5 performances after another, and they drive you with a bus from one theater to another. So we ended up in this small theater where Jay and Eric Oberg were performing. And it's like a children's show, but then there is all these professionals. So it was actually just a couple of children and then a lot of bookers and agents and directors from all over. So I heard that they only told them a few days before that they had to do the show in English, or that it would be better to do the show in English because most people wouldn't understand otherwise. So that was, it was great to see the show. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's their first, because they've been in a group for many years. And they've done a lot of these shows, and it's always been without language. So it was really interesting for me to see this new kind of flavor. And secondly, it's the first time I've seen Eric speak in the show. I mean, I've seen actually, because Eric is doing his PhD So I saw a couple of his talks. Of course, and I've been speaking to him a lot, so I know he's not mute. But it's always different when you see how you present it. But I thought that Artifact, this show, really caught also something of Eric Aubrey's personality with his deep interest, academic interest in circus, and many of the topics that when I spoke to him on the podcast came up in the show. This idea of an archive, which I think you can connect to as well. He's got the Cinquevalli archive with, I can't remember, it's at like 20,000 articles and all the mentions that he has from everywhere that is specifically about this one artist that led to his book that came out last year, 2 years ago, I think, Cleverer Than God, about Cinquevalli. But I saw him talk, and they have these jackets actually similar to the jacket that I have on, and I felt it had this kind of museum feeling, and of course they're using things from natural history and all this, and
exactly.
It's really interesting. Sorry.
No, I thought it was so interesting that for the children, so much more than, there's a juggler coming to our school showing us some tricks, and sometimes it just stops there, right? Like for them, it will not have more meaning than that. Oh, we had a good time. It was fun to see the juggler. But putting everything in a historical perspective made it so much more interesting and deeper for the kids. And also for the adults, obviously, but I mean for the children, because they start to realize, oh wow, this is actually, there's a whole history to this, to juggling, and then these objects, they are real historical objects, and both from juggling and from natural history. And I thought that was very clever too, because I think it made the children so much more engaged in the piece, and I think they got so much more out of it and got a deep respect for the art of juggling and for everything they did. I thought that was really, really clever.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a really good show. And I remember, Jay, they had it was an arduous process to create it, and life getting in the way and all those things as it does. And then when they then finally sort of did it, and from the very first time, I think they got a really good response also, because just when juggling is an abstract art form, like right up there with music in terms of it's just music for your eyes or whatever. But and they have always just been doing the juggling, and that leaves it really abstract for the kids. I mean, they also get, of course, into the games and everything, but the language and the style that they have of presentation, that made me feel a little bit like you're in a museum, because that's where you see dinosaur eggs, that's where you see fossils and petrified wood and a mammoth bone, and but they still have this kind of a bit formal, because they both dressed a little bit and keep themselves very nice, but it's like Jay is balancing the poster of the mammoth when he says little things that are sort of a bit childlike in it, and it's in the very beginning of its existence. So I'm sure there will be more and more sort of details as well. But I thought, I mean, I have only seen actually 2/3 when I was rudely interrupted by you joining the conversation. So when you said you were a bit late, I was going, oh, maybe I can see the end of the show.
Sorry, we'll have to wait a little bit, or you can watch it now and then we talk a little bit later.
We can just talk about it. Yeah. This will just be a review of their show.
Yeah. No, the only thing was that I realized that the children, they understand. I mean, they accept everything, but the adults were actually quite skeptical about if the objects, the artifacts, were real.
Yeah.
Because I think they couldn't believe it, right? Yeah. They were reacting a little bit in the sense of they thought it was funny sometimes. They, well, that's that. I thought that was also an interesting take, and I don't know how to overcome this.
No, and like my first thought about that, because when you say it, because that I didn't quite think of it, but it does not surprise me at all, because who actually has dinosaur eggs? It is like, if you haven't actually thought about that and gone on the internet and seen, you can actually you can get this. It's not cheap, and it's like but and an actual meteorite to find that as well. It's available to buy, and it's and you can do it. So for them, it was that was a really important part of it. Like they bought that petrified wood, and I just got a text the other day saying, yeah, they've spent a whole lot of time, and this show, more than any show that they've had, they need to be doing the packing to protect all of these things. And on the last trip they went, when they did the show, the petrified wood broke, and they thought they'd made a perfect thing. And he's like, what's happening with that anyway? Isn't it both rock and wood? It shouldn't last forever or whatever. So they're having to take a lot of care and a lot of thought into how this can be transported in a way that all equipment kind of has a tendency to be knocked around when you're on tour.
Yeah.
So,
and you don't want to lose a suitcase full of historical juggling objects.
No, that's right.
Because also they made it clear that some of the juggling objects were actually more valuable than the dinosaur eggs.
Yeah, that
was also very funny.
It is.
I love because they would rather drop the dinosaur eggs than the clubs.
Those wooden clubs. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because they're like but that's also one of those things. It's like how do you make people care about juggling? And one of the ways is risk. You have kind of and the risk of juggling a dinosaur egg. It is so immediate, and you understand it so much. But of course, with the adults, you will be thinking that it isn't real. That's your first thought, because it's much easier just to think it's probably all bullshit than it is to sort of come on board with it. But I did think, because it is so cool that they got these objects, that if you were to do this as an adult show, which I think you could, with just a slight change of the tone of how it's presented, because there's of course a couple of little things that are there specifically to engage the kids, but you could see the objects, that you could see it before or after. Because I think even just mentioning in the show that as soon as the show is done, you can come up and look, which I know that they have done previously. In fact, the reason why they have a dinosaur egg in the beginning, I think they had a dinosaur egg already as an object for something that Jay had bought, I think. And then they show that in the end, because they have a sort of Q&A afterwards when they're at the school, where the kids can come up and ask questions and sort of touch some of the things and whatever. And you could do that for the adults too, to kind of just say in the end of this, you can all come up and you can see and touch these objects or whatever. Even just if they said that might sort of alleviate that thing where you go, oh, well, if we can come up and see it, obviously we can't hand everything around all the time, because that would be annoying or so. So there's probably ways that you could do it that would alleviate that question a little bit.
Yeah, I was very surprised actually, because maybe because I know them and I know their, already the collecting of the juggling objects. So then I totally got the whole point of the show. So I never doubted it any second. But some of the people were really like persistent, because they kept, at some point they also kept insisting, this is really one of the first clubs ever made, and then the people just kept a bit giggling in the audience, and, and they just didn't want to believe it. It was really, they were sure that it was all a story to make a fun show for the kids, basically.
Yeah, I think it's something in there as well where I thought, like I'm just watching it now and I'm forming these opinions as I go, but also for Eric to kind of go, well, my name is Eric Aubrey and I am a doctor. I have just taken a doctor's degree in juggling. And throughout with just one little sentence like that, I mean, they just mentioned their archive there, but I'm going like, I have an archive and I have a particular interest in the history of juggling, which was a big part of my PhD. Like with a couple of little sentences like that as well in the beginning, they might still think that it is not real. Of course, you can always doubt that. So now you're into magicians.
It also sounds ridiculous to have a PhD in juggling.
It totally does, yeah. But but I love this as well. That's why I find it so fascinating when people have got credentials for something which is as frivolous or on the surface so cheap and entertainment. It's just entertainment what we're doing.
Yeah,
But of
obviously
course,
to me it sounds really great, and it sounds very honorable. But to the regular person, it sounds like something that doesn't exist.
yeah, absolutely.
So they're like, you're taking the piss out of me right
You're
now.
fighting an uphill battle also, like, because just like a magician in a sense, people don't think that what they are talking about is real when you go, oh, I bought this cylinder was bought in the Far East at the market with the like. So you just sort of go, this is just
Exactly.
the shtick around it. So when he goes, I bought these clubs, but then it's also like it's
I got these
you,
dinosaur eggs.
yeah,
Yeah.
you run into this problem with most things. Well, because I'm thinking also of my sword swallowing. For a lot of sword swallowers, demonstrating that sword swallowing is real is a very big part of what they care about. Like they don't, you don't want to mix magic and sword swallowing, because then you might just think that it's people are more likely to think that you have a sword that could be handled and touched, and somehow the metal, like in Terminator 2, just goes up into the handle, than to think that you have a physical skill that would actually do it, even though you know the food goes down or whatever. But it just, the whole object, you need so much convincing in a sense to believe it, and it can be an uphill battle. But
I
personally,
just spoke to Lucky Hell about that in Monte Carlo, because she was also she had heard that from some colleagues, circus artists, because of course in Monte Carlo there's the whole circus world gathering, that some people were not believing that it was real what she was doing, and it upset her quite a bit. I could sense that it was upsetting that people. She was also like, why would people think that the Monte Carlo Festival would hire somebody that does something that is not real?
Yeah,
Like, being the
that's
first
right.
sword swallowing act in the festival, as far as I understood.
Yeah, I understood that too. I actually contacted her and asked her if she could, if we could talk on the podcast, and then she was like, "I'm flying in the morning to Australia, so it didn't happen just now, but I would like to talk to her about that, because it's an interesting coming together of two worlds or so. Like sword swallowing hasn't been part of that festival. It belongs kind of in a different arena, the freak shows or whatever. But with her aerial stuff, it's connected up. So I'd like to pursue that talk and hear about the process of doing it and the intersection of the two worlds.
Yeah,
But
I thought you were going to say I would like to pursue the aerial sword swallowing.
Yeah, because I also want to go to Monte Carlo with my sword swallowing act, and this is apparently how you get in with that. No, I think I'll just continue on with my mystery stuff. But how about we? I thought we could. I'll use this whole bit. This was just great. It's a great introduction, because this, I think, more than anything, us talking about circus like this is
yes. The only problem is that I couldn't get Eric's name. I was like, I sometimes have these moments that I then don't get up with the name like straight away. Maybe you can edit that, make it shorter.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't remember names very well at all. And I have also a thing which I think is some sort of whole psychic block, is that as soon as I start to try to think of someone's name, happens a lot here when I'm at Mad Apple, where there is, we just had this sort of, they had the thing going on where we had this sort of Olympics this week, where they've been doing games and stuff in before the show and whatever, in that half hour before, and you're throwing balls and doing stuff and catching game points. Okay. Anyway, each day more than 50 people was in part of the game, because I was just there and I counted, and I'm going, oh, once you add together all the people in the office, all the people in the technical crew, and all the artists and all this, it's so many people. So I keep having this, like, of course I know the people who I'm with most of the time, but there's all these on the periphery that I have been introduced to, but then I'm there for 2 months and I'm not there again for for a very long time. So I find it, and then I get afraid. I'm going, oh, his name is this guy I've been talking to, and I knew that his name was Todd. He's got a connection to Norway. He's got Norwegian ancestry, so we were talking about that. And I was like, oh, but then I didn't dare to say or use his name because I was afraid that that it wasn't the right one. So sometimes the name comes, but it doesn't come out.
Yeah.
Maybe it's me that's getting
for
old.
me, sometimes, it's strange. Sometimes it's, I mean, I know these names and I know the names of a show. It happens with show names, well, or company names, and then sometimes I'm in conversation and I'm like, and it takes a little while to get there, or yeah, it's strange. But it's also because there's so much, I guess. You meet so many people and see so many shows and so many artists that it's my job to know it all. But
yeah, but also like, I mean, because to start with the end first or whatever, because with this we need to do a whole talk about like to talk about the origins and stuff first, but because now it's kind of your job to watch circus.
Yes,
live circus.
Finally.
Because that's a dream job for you.
Yes, it is. I mean, I've been watching circus all my life, but and I've been performing in circus, but now I get to watch circus, for my job. But it's also there's more to the job, let's say.
Of course, yeah. You're the curator and artistic director of Circusstad Festival, which is based in Rotterdam. And is it? Yeah, I was going to say it's a kind of contemporary circus festival, and you were hired because of your understanding of more traditional shows as well, and because of who you are. So they are interested with a little bit of a bleed over of a different type of circus acts or so. You got some little summary to just describe what Circusstad is?
Yes, well, Circusstad is a contemporary circus festival that was founded in 2010 in the city of Rotterdam, obviously. And the reason that it was created was that in the Netherlands, we had 2 circus academies that had been founded 4 years prior, and they were about to release the first circus artists to the market, basically. The only thing is there was not really a market in the Netherlands, especially not in the more contemporary circus. There were hardly any companies. There were no artists. So they thought something needs to be done here. Otherwise, we're going to lose all these artists that have studied here. We have the school here in Rotterdam from Codarts, and they're all going to go abroad and to perform. So several initiatives started around this time for this reason. And one of them was Circusstad Festival. Actually, the 2 biggest theaters in the city came together, the Youth Circus and the Circus School Codarts, the Circus Academy, and they founded the festival. And the idea was that we would bring international companies to Rotterdam to show the audience and to inspire the young artists, and to also showcase the young artists that had just graduated and the students and the youth circuses. And basically, this is still going on today. I mean, now we're more than 15 years later. And there's a vibrant field now in the Netherlands. Actually, the Netherlands has really made its comeback compared to other countries like France and Belgium. We were very much behind on the developments of new circus and contemporary circus. And now we have many companies. There's many possibilities also to get funding for circus productions, for example, something that was not at all possible because circus wasn't recognized as an art form yet. So it's really a success story of circus in the Netherlands, and the festival has grown as well. 5 years ago, the director that started the festival, artistic director, she decided that it was time for something new, and so they started looking for somebody to replace her, and then that's where I came in. And because I've been performing for more than 20 years as a circus artist, and it was also a good moment in my career to start looking for something different, a different position. And I had always hoped that it would be within circus because I have such a deep and profound love for circus all my life. So it seemed like a perfect opportunity.
Yeah, I'm so glad you got that. It's such a joy to have because I've been part of it now twice, not just with me arriving and doing my act, but actually getting to create stuff as well, which is a really cool aspect of the festival, that you put together and kind of curate. And I mean, to different degrees, you're actually directorially involved with some of the shows that are being created, as well as you're doing a big gala show where you're programming it's a big circus, even though it's sort of set in a kind of gala show setting.
Yeah, and that's a new aspect to the festival that I introduced without thinking too much about it. It just felt very natural for me to also come up with concepts or ideas for shows, and find the right people together and come up with ideas for the festival, including this gala. The gala was also for me an opportunity to introduce acts as well, because my career has been mostly with an act. I've been working in circus and variety and all kinds of shows with a 7-minute act for most of my career. And Circusstad had mostly been presenting full-length shows by companies from all over the world and local companies. And I thought it would be interesting to bring this gala where you combine artists that are in the different shows at the festival and some special guests that come in specifically for the gala, and create this big evening that both is like a highlight of the festival, but also is a big event of prestige for the circus sector in general in the Netherlands. And that has worked out really well. I mean, you've been part of it during my first edition of Circusstad. And then the other project we did together is the Family Freak Show, where we came up with the idea of having a freak show for family audiences, because I knew that as a venue, we have this beautiful small tent that we use every year, in which they were programming shows that would play 3 times a day for about 25 minutes to half an hour length. And I really wanted to put a family show in there. I thought it would be great to have a show that the whole family can go to, because our programming at Circusstad is super diverse. So we have shows for family audiences, but we have indoor, we have outdoor, we have tents, we have theaters, but we also have very experimental, abstract circus works. We have works that go very deep into personal stories or topics that are relevant in society. So it's like there's a big range of types of shows for different types of audience as well, and that's what I also really like about it. And then so the Family Freak Show was the first one of those that we produced ourselves, and I asked you if that would be something that you would be interested in to do. And then teamed you up with some of the local artists that are from the local circus scene here in the Netherlands. And that became very successful right from the start.
Yeah, so fun. And to get to work with Melinda Mays and Lisa Tudela, 2 excellent artists. And it was such a great process. And I was so happy that it could happen a second time as well, as a sort of reinvention of the show. Or it was such a great thing. And I think it's when you did the show as well with like every year, where the way that you curate that little room, because now I'm like invested in what's going on in it. It's so interesting, but it's of course great because not all artistic directors of festivals are also artists and creators. So for you, it was like a natural thing to curate a large scale. Like, how big is that theater? It's like 1,500 people or something, or
yes, yeah, about 14 or 1,500. Yes, but at the same time, it was also a big step for me, because I had never directed a big show like that. I had also never directed a festival or curated a festival before, so it felt also like kind of a long shot to get this position, and I'm very glad that they had trust in me and that they gave me the job. But it was a big it was a big risk in a way, but I felt like I was up for the challenge, and that I knew exactly what I wanted and what I thought we could do and what we could achieve with it, and I worked very hard on it as well.
Yes, I know, man. Whenever you call, I need to then I set off the next 2 hours. We have so much to talk about always, and I remember us talking about this. But there's a side to this which I felt like I had all the confidence in the world from watching you curate gala shows or so. And this maybe ties back together again to when we first met in, was it 2017 that the show was, or was it 2016, the first year for us?
2016.
2016, yeah.
Yeah.
Where we worked together on Circus Nemo, which is an incredible show, Danish show with an incredible director that is a clown. And it's almost like, I sometimes describe Circus Nemo as the reverse of most shows, where there is a whole bunch of circus acts with a few clown acts in between. And his show is a whole bunch of clowning, reprise with different characters, him coming on as different characters, and a few world-class, incredible acts, circus acts in between. So it's like the balance is reversed a little bit.
Definitely.
So we were invited to come and be there, and we had many things in common, our deep love of circus, but also that we had kids that were exactly the same age. So we were could go to playgrounds and go to Legoland and all the zoos and the things together with the kids. And then when the kids are playing, we could. Yeah. So, and one of the things there before we got to start about the actual craft of you as an artist, which was my main aim for today. But one of the things that tied us together also was that you have an enormous collection of circus on film and circus.
Yes,
so tell me a little bit about the collection, and then we can, because this is what we did. This connects up to what you were doing at the gala show, because we were watching and you were curating these nights of watching circus based on your collection. So tell me a little bit about your collection and how you got into that.
Yeah, that's going all the way back to the early childhood. I was growing up in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, in a family of performers, but not circus performers. My mother is a ballet dancer, and she was dancing classical and modern ballet with different companies in the Netherlands, the Nederlands Danstheater and National Ballet. And my father, a musician who played in the orchestra that was actually accompanying the ballet. So that's also how they met. So theater and art were very much part of my childhood, and not just ballet and music, but also my father used to have a tango orchestra, and all kinds of musicians always came by. But we also went to all kinds of performances and also to circus. And somehow, from as long as I can remember, circus was the art form that inspired me the most. And my parents can still tell me, like, you were 3 years old, you saw your first circus performance, and it was clear to us that this was all that could interest you from that moment on. So I played circus at home with my toys. I watched circus on television, and of course, when there was circus on television, my parents would record it on VHS at the time. So during my childhood, I started to have a small collection of circus on VHS tapes that I would watch almost every day after school. I would come home and I would take one of these tapes and start watching it. So some of these tapes I've watched, I don't know how many times, because this was feeding my interest in circus. And we would see every performance that came to town. And because my mother was traveling a lot for her work, when I was born and my sister was born, she stopped dancing and she started working as the assistant of a choreographer from the Netherlands, a well-known choreographer called Hans van Manen, who recently passed away. And his works are still being performed all over the world. And my mother became his assistant, and she would be staging the productions all over the world. So me or my sister would travel with her to these various places. And I got to see many big circuses and variety shows over the years in all these different cities. So that was a very rich environment to grow up in. I got to see a lot. But the circus videos, they stayed with me, and I still I always collected more. So I always continue to record everything that was on TV. And at some point later on, I transferred all of these videos to hard drives, first to DVD and then to hard drives, and also started collecting more and receiving recordings from other collectors. And by now, my collection is pretty huge. And I curate it basically like a library. And I know almost everything that I have as well. I know all the acts and all the shows that I have on video. So I'm kind of a living archive in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, this was when we was with Circus Nemo, and I think it was the first time, and it was Holger that was there. What's Holger's last name?
Malmström.
Malmström, yeah, Holger Malmström, who he was the tent boss of the show, but he had been an artist in the DDR circus,
yes,
the state circus. And I remember, you probably remember it, but I'd like to tell that story of how it is, where he then says, he says the name of our group, which I can't remember, but you probably still, but he goes, we were in this thing, and then you could say, oh, you guys did a TV show in wherever that was in 1986. And he goes, yes. And this recognition of someone, and then there was a couple of things that you had, and you could go through your archive in your head and go say which TV show it was, when it was, and then went to your caravan, got a couple of hard drives, came back, and then we watched him in his youth doing shows on TV. And I just remember finding both that and that CERN mentioned the guy that gave him the idea for his Circus Nemo show, the guy that was doing cloud swing and doing a lot of shouting. And there too, you go, oh, okay, well, that was that year, I think. And then you could dig that up too, based on his very vague memory of that thing and the time of year. You could find a show. Was it even one of the Danish shows like Benoist or something?
I think, I think the recording that I had from that act came from Circus Mirano in Norway.
Oh, from Norway, yeah.
Yeah, actually. And Holger's act, that was an act called Directons. They did like a fixed bar, a gymnast bar act. And we're part of the DDR.
Square, kind of.
Yeah, like a square. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they were part of the DDR state circus. And I did happen to have a recording. Sometimes I even have multiple recordings of the same act. Like there's some acts that did so many TV shows that I have maybe 8 or 9 or 10 different recordings of their act over the years. Some TV stations, they cut the acts a little bit, like it's not the full act, and some show the full thing. And call it a curse or a blessing, I don't know, but I remember like so much from all of these things that I have collected over the years. The problem is also that nobody else could find anything in my archive, because I haven't like structured it in a way that it's like comprehensible, that you can actually find like a single act. Maybe one day I'll get to that. But up to now, I'm the one who can still remember and find things. And find things for people like that has happened actually quite often, that I talk to people and that they say, oh yeah, I used to do this act before, and I'm like, oh, was that you? Oh yeah, I was watching that act all the time on video when I was a child.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
because it's, for as much as what we do is so live, and there are moments that are lost video, and then when it's especially like a lot of what you have is what's filmed sort of especially for TV, so it's been edited together also to give you not just be in a fixed one tripod kind of version of it. So I mean it's just so nice to that all of this is there as this is archive. I remember being so fascinated. So that was one of the things that we started doing that deepened our friendship, because of course you always chat with the people who you work with when you're doing a season, and this was a 5-month run, but this the fact that you had all these videos made us do on our nights off or whatever, or after the shows, I can't even remember, but just sitting and eating pizza and watch movies for hours.
I think even after the shows.
Yes, because it wasn't so late shows. That's right.
Yeah, and this is actually something that started for me when I did the season, or when we did the season, because, well, I'll get to that later. But when we did the season with Big Apple Circus in New York, and in touring in the United States, because we were with a cast of artists where there were several people actually quite interested in talking about circus and watching videos of circus and of other acts. And it was a nice group of people. There were some people from circus families that had all these stories and that knew a lot of people. And then there were some younger artists that came from circus school. And there was Daniel Sear, who co-founded Circus, who was in the show. And so it was a very interesting group of people. So we started doing this like 2 weekly circus nights, we called it. So we would gather together, everybody would bring some food, and we would watch in our caravan, which was the biggest one because we just had a baby, so they gave us the biggest trailer. So we had the most space, so we would gather in our caravan and we would watch circus videos together. And over time, I started curating these evenings more and more, because in the beginning it was very free, and we would just, like, somebody would shout something like, maybe we should watch this or that, and I would look it up, or I would have an idea, and it was like this. And later I started curating more and more and making a bit of an idea of a program. And that's something that after that Big Apple Circus season, we kept on doing with some of these colleagues whenever we would meet them, like specifically two friends of ours, the Acrobufos, Cesc and Christina, clowns that were on that show. And we met them many times after that. They would come to visit us in the Netherlands, or we would go to there. And always we would have these circus nights. And on other contracts, it has never really become a thing as much as it was at the Big Apple Circus, except maybe with you in Circus Nemo, because there I found somebody else who was really interested in all these videos. Yes. And we would have these evenings where we would watch all these things.
Yeah, so fun and so deep as well. I have a memory which I need to corroborate with you now, that we watched, because we somehow got onto this idea of animals in circus, and we watched some videos from Russia where they were doing, or one act where they were kind of doing a play where the bear is firing a gun, and do you remember what this is? Where there's like, where the bear is coming in and out, and it's am I just dreamt this up?
The firing of the gun, I cannot recall.
No,
but there are definitely a lot of acts from the former Soviet state circus where bears were doing any kind of thing that acrobats were doing, or like walking the high wire. Walking the high wire, or doing jumps on the Russian bar, or from the teeter board, like that. Yeah, that kind of acts have been around, and I've been collecting everything there is from circus history. So all of that is also in the archive, definitely.
So amazing. But anyway, I remember it was also interesting for me to meet someone who has this passion for the history of it too, because it is true that a lot of the performers aren't particularly interested in. I think circus is a very physical, action-driven thing. A lot of the people who end up there are interested in doing stuff or whatever, and not so interested necessarily in thinking about things. So it's not so often that I meet people that are interested in the more philosophical aspects of what it is that we do, or even in the history of it. So it's so nice for us to have that, and it's so inspiring also to see all the richness of stuff that has happened. Because when you talk about it, you've seen all your shows and you do all of that, but it's something almost different when you have an archive where there is hundreds and hundreds of hours, and each one of those little 5-8 minute blocks has in it a lifetime of practice and work and shaping and reshaping and all of this, which is, of course, this is the sort of the acts that we have been doing, and
some of these acts have been so well crafted and so well put together, and have been evolved into like a masterpiece, basically. And what I find really interesting, and what I've always been studying, is these act structures as well. Like how do people build these acts, and what makes an act truly great? And of course, it's always a combination of many factors, but it's really interesting to. And for me, an act or a show, I mean, they both have a dramaturgy, and there is a structure to it, and that structure there's not one way to do it. There are many ways, and there's also many different things that you could be wanting to say or to do with your performance, right? But this is a very interesting topic, and I think watching so much circus and watching so many shows and watching so many acts over and over. Also later, when I was growing up, I would be hanging around at the Christmas circus in the Carré Theater every winter, and I would be watching certain acts every single show. So sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, I would go out there, just watch that act, and go backstage again, practice some more, and hang out with the artist there. But you learn so much from watching it over and over again. I mean, for me at least, it was a very fascinating time. And also what you were just saying, like some artists, like especially jugglers, like I'm a juggler. I mean, I ended up, let's say, a juggler in the circus, or in performing in circus. But I started out by being interested in circus. And many jugglers, it's not the other way around, is that they are very interested in juggling first, and they learn to juggle and they practice all the time. And then later, when they go to circus school, or that's when they enter the circus world. And for me, it was really the circus world first. And then I joined a youth circus. And then in the youth circus, I practiced all the things there were. And actually, juggling was probably the last discipline that I attempted, because I had mastered everything else. I could walk on the globe. I could ride the unicycle. But I could walk the wire. But that was the last thing that I could not yet do. And that's the one that stuck with me. Like juggling, I really enjoyed it, and I had talent for it, I guess. And it was also practical, because you could practice it at home. I didn't need to have a trapeze in my apartment. But juggling you could do anywhere. So I think that's also what makes me slightly different from some of the other jugglers, and that makes it possible for me to do the job that I'm doing now, because I have such a broad interest in circus, and I've always had a broad interest in circus, also all through my career. Always watched a lot of shows, always followed the things that were going on in the circus world, followed all the developments, both classical circus and more contemporary. So I really feel that that you could almost say that everything has been leading up to this, actually, to this position that I'm having right now. Because it's already like as a child, I used to write my own circus programs in school. When the teachers then always thought that I was working really hard because I was writing and everything, but in real time I was actually writing circus programs, like the running order of a show, with the acts that I knew from the circus that I had seen or that I had on video, and that at home I would then play with my toys, with my Playmobil circus toys. So So that was already at that time I was making my own circus program. So can you imagine? Yeah. It's going on for a long time.
I knew some of this background, and of course the Circus Night found a new way of expressing itself during the pandemic, when you literally curated, and we watched once a week. We gathered on it was on Messenger or on Facebook when we watched those things, and that became a staple. We ate pizza and sat around and watched it, and we commented on the thing. And so you making a gala show, for as much as it's scary to do it the first time with real people, but for me to see the combination of me as a kind of clown and having the Scandinavian boards, and those were acts that I had seen together in combinations like this before. So to me, it was like, it was an incredible kind of development of you'd been playing with these elements already as here's Scandinavian boards, here's photos acts from Nemo, and you put them together. So to me, it was such an easy sort of next step of the evolution. But of course, it's completely different to try to sell tickets in a huge theater and do all of this. So it's a huge learning curve.
It's like having a lot of dry practice, I guess. Building all those circus nights. Of course, what was fun during the pandemic was that we would gather actually all the people that I had met over the years that had been interested in having these circus nights where we would watch these videos, including you and including the people from Big Apple Circus and everyone, and we would just get together in these small groups and watch a new one, and it got us got us through the pandemic, and it was kind of a dry practice for what became later the Circusstad Gala, with the big difference that, of course, in the real gala, I could not use any historical acts, because in the circus nights on video, I would, of course, mix acts from the past and acts from today, and of course, I couldn't hire any of those. In real life.
No. But what I find fascinating too with the idea of watching things on video, and this came up a little bit when I spoke to Jay as well, who had a particular love affair with Mystere, or still has, with Mystere, the show, and watching it on video repeatedly.
I listened to those episodes.
Yeah, and there's something about this which I have been, I just actually finished my book yesterday. I mean, I finished it before, but now it is another big draft. I've worked on it for another half a year since the last time when I thought it was finished, and then Jay actually read it. But anyway, in there I talk a little bit about this thing of separating out the material and the structure and the character as the three elements that you can combine in a show. But this thing that you describe of looking at the structure of acts, this is something that I am just utterly fascinated with, and something that emerges when you look at the act as a whole, as a kind of living organism. And with your archive, you have a unique precision where you can actually, like you say, you might have like 6 different versions of the show where because the act is always, in one way it's the same, but it is always being itself in a slightly different way depending on when it is in your career and what new ideas you've had, or what injury you've had, or what so looking at it on video, or like you say, as a child at the Carré, watching the shows and watching the acts again and again, that kind of repetition is something that not everybody enjoys, but that I enjoy too. Where I like, sometimes the first time when I watch an act, it just sort of washes over you, and I feel like I see one thing, but then when you see it the second time and you see it the third time, you start to see more of the things. When you watch an act for the first time and before you watch it again, like, do you immediately start picking out the structural elements, or is that something that you start to discover later, or is it things you can think of after you've watched it? And because I often find it comes in conversation with you, like we just did this live, speaking about Jay and Eric's show Artifact. That I see it and I just take it in, but as I start to talk to you about it, I start to think of it like structure, and how is their characters coming out, and what is the material, how are they presenting the material and stuff. How is your viewing process of watching things several times?
I think I find myself nowadays, at least, already the first time already looking at some of these structural things, or sometimes being impressed or surprised by some of the structural elements, because I just really remember when I see something and I really enjoy it and I think, oh, this is really good, I straight away already analyze a bit, why is it so good at this moment.
I think also it shows how embedded it is in you, and I would like this to happen for other people too. And I think this is something that is needed if we were to have something like because we have circus schools, but in the circus schools, we only really have the level of artists. We don't have, I don't know, maybe we don't, but it's uncommon anyway to have a lighting design for circus, or have a direction, was what I was going to speak mainly about. But it's like a lighting designer could probably design everything, and there are people who do that. But people who direct and create stuff, like the fact that you can apply these things kind of immediately, shows an understanding of the art of and the expression of circus that is so ingrained in you that you immediately start to see it. And
yes,
I don't know.
and I must say that I find sometimes there is a bit of how do you say this? It's not that it's not valued, but the building an act is sometimes a bit underestimated, I feel, by a new generation of artists. I mean, I can only speak for the circus schools that I kind of know, but they have to make an act to graduate, even though some of them might never work with that act or with an act, because they might go work for a company and perform full-length pieces or create their own full-length pieces sometimes. But I've often encountered a certain underestimation of what it means to make a 7-minute act, because they sometimes feel that, because we can create a 1-hour piece, of course we can create a 7-minute act, like that's easy, which it isn't. And I'm always happy when I feel that it's coming back, that realization that it's not that easy, and that it actually is just as hard to create a good 7-minute act as to create a good show. But it's I would be very sad if the knowledge gets lost, let's say, on how to create in that way and for that format, because it's a very specific format that exists maybe only in circus. I mean, there aren't any singers or dancers that go around the world and they say, this is the 7 minutes that I do. This just this song, and I don't do anything else. Not that I say that as a circus artist you shouldn't be able to do anything else, because nowadays, of course, there's many circus artists that do many different things, and that's great. But in theory, you could go around the world with one circus act for a certain number of years and perform everywhere. Yeah. And it's a very specific thing to circus. So I would be sad if it would not continue. And sometimes I feel that nowadays we're losing a little bit these really great acts that we used to have in the past. The acts that got really, really famous because they were just so good and so strong and so well crafted.
Yeah, and it feels to me like one of the things that makes it hard is that to create a really strong, vibrant act, it is like writing short stories, which short stories you have to deliver kind of more in, like, it's not just because it's shorter does not make it easier to write a short story or so. In a sense, the density of it and the fact that you have to deliver the same kind of stuff that a novel does, but in a shorter period of time, gives that there can be less elements and less developments or so of the big scope, but it presents its own completely unique set of challenges where everything has a beginning and a middle and an end, and what will the structure kind of be? And I find the creation of acts being super interesting. I'm just making a new act now, a new magic act, because I have requirements for my family show that I'm now going to do a slightly longer version of a show that I used to do at schools, which was like 38 minutes long or whatever. Now I'm going to add that, so it becomes kind of 45, 50. but how much I think about this, of what the role of it is within the show, of what the themes are that I need. And I need to have a kid up so that I can give this kid a balloon animal, because once I have given this kid a balloon, the setup for the next gift that I give uses the language of, so that you think that I'm going to make another balloon, but I'm actually blowing some soap bubbles to give to the kid. So it has all these sort of elements that are in it, and I need to have the kid up, and I need to do so, and it needs to be stuff that has not been done in the show before. So I use a different apparatus, or like a different thing. So there's so much that goes into it, and I think within magic that still people are. There's a lot of people who got acts, but there too, it's just when you are alone. You go on a cruise ship or whatever, people are they want people to be able to have one person that preferably does 2 40-minute shows, so that when the boat goes from Oslo to Kiel, you can do one of the shows, and then when you go back again, you can do another one. And that it's a completely different thing, because it is rare to see a 1-hour show that has been run and worked as much as like your act with the juggling tango or my tennis act or so. And that creates these things, and I use that language of calling it like a masterpiece. Like it's the thing I have done many things throughout my life, but only a few of the acts that I have done thousands of times. And each time when I do it, I am paying attention, and I'm going, oh, this got an additional laugh. Or so I am just this last couple of weeks since I got to Mad Applewood Cirque here in Las Vegas now, there's new things that I have discovered in the act now after doing it for 27 years. There's a new way for me to put the headband on after it pops up in my hair, and I say, "Oh, I don't want to look ridiculous."
Yeah.
So the hair pops up, and the way that I now make sure that the hair stays there and still cover it, and I'll put the headband on and pull all of the hair away in one move, and it now sends a kind of gasp in the room of just how bald I am. And that's always kind of been there, but it's also something that's coming into fruition now that my hair is particularly long at the moment, and I am particularly bald. So it wasn't that. Even in 2017, when we first worked together, I wasn't as bald as I am now. I was already absolutely balding. But anyway, it's so funny to me that I still now am discovering something, and that moment have lived with me. I did say I don't want to look ridiculous before my hair fell out. Now that joke is much better, because now it's like, oh, no, is my hair looking okay? I don't want to look ridiculous. It's the full line. And it's so weird that after 27 years, I can still find another moment where I'm going, there was a kind of gasp response there, or like a real, much more visceral by going, they see I'm thin, maybe, but the hair is so still caught in the headband that you still find there was a moment just underneath the surface that in the way that the headband was put back on again, which I hadn't realized as a moment in itself. I just put the headband on and you could see it, and the idea was that the hair was messy. Now it's become about the reveal of the baldness, and so these are fine details that are of little interest when I talk to most people about it. But it's the kind of stuff that I know that you haven't seen my act so many times. You actually know the joke and can picture it.
I know your act like by heart. I mean, I've seen it many times. I mean, I had seen your act already before we actually met, because I had seen you in La Clique.
Oh yeah.
And I think I already had videos of you in the archive as well before we met, and we probably already watched your act from one of the TV shows you did during those first circus nights at Big Apple Circus.
Oh yeah.
And then we got to work together, and then we got to watch videos together. So it's also, for me, it has also been a very interesting circle that I've ended up working with so many artists that I have been admiring on stage when I was a young child. that I saw in the circuses that I visited, and that I saw, and sometimes also that I met backstage during the winter circuses, and that know me since I'm 10, 12 years old, and then later we ended up performing in the same show. And this is something that's been going on all the time because I've been following the circus world so much. So you follow everything that's going on, and then you meet people, you meet new artists again, and you realize like, oh yeah, I know your show, or I know your act. I've seen you there and there, and yeah, it's interesting when that circle always goes on.
Yes, the rolling circles of the circus are always going on, and the conversations that have been had at a real show mirrors what is in the movie, and it comes back, and old friends becomes new friends through the continual cycling of the shows and films and conversations. I love this, and it's hard to find a place to cut the episode. But because this is a one-man operation, entirely run, recorded, edited, and everything by myself, that's why I'm always dividing the episodes off. Maybe the time will come when I will have enough conversation to do this as a weekly thing with 2-hour conversations each time. But then again, maybe this is enough, leaving us wanting more at the end of it. And the next exciting episode, me and Menno dives into a whole lot more, dive deep into the creation of a really unique act combining tango and juggling in a way that really needs to be seen, to be believed and understood. I'm really looking forward to you hearing the second part of this conversation in the next exciting episode of The Way of the Showman. So, until then, take care of yourself and those you love, and I hope to see you along the way.